Now that you have packed away the Christmas ornaments and Chrismons for the season, it's time for some contemplation. Those Chrismons are from the 80s. They're made of styrofoam. The glitter has dropped off and they're being held together with toothpicks. Don't celebrate another Christmas harkening back to the age of glitter balls. See Ad Crusim's beautifully designed Christmons, together with our book describing how they fit into the church year. Visit adcrusim.com. That's ADCRUCEM.com.
You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
I'm Bree.
And I'm Rachel.
We have an adventure in Lutheranism today. And we have a special guest in studio. You get a twofer today.
It's a twofer.
This is super exciting. And our guest is actually in studio in the flesh, which makes it even more exciting. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of ands going on right now.
So many ands.
And our guest is a fellow podcast host. So if you listen to KFUO podcasts, you may recognize Steph Neugebauer's voice from the Friends for Life podcast. We like to plug that one occasionally in the Ladies Lounge. You do great work on that podcast, Steph. So I'm super excited to have you in studio with us today.
Thank you. It is good to be here. I think Bree was the one who said we have another experienced podcaster in the house. I said, does that mean 20 episodes makes me experienced?
Embrace it, girl. Embrace it.
Double digits.
Some little cross-pollination here. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Yes.
We love that.
It's true. It's true. So, Steph, why don't you give us a little bit of your background, whatever you want people in the Ladies Lounge to know, and a little plug for your podcast, too.
Oh, I would love to. Okay. Let's talk about me.
Yes.
My background. I don't know how detailed you want me to get, but
your entire life story, please.
Sure. Okay. We'll be here
in an hour, though.
So how many episodes do I get? So I have been working with Life Ministry, now kind of been a part of them for the last many years. And I have been brought on once again. Life Ministry is a passion of mine. So I actually am a CUW graduate, Bachelor of Science. My background is ultrasound.
Yes.
Oh, wow. And then the next thing you do after you graduate with a bachelor's in ultrasound is you go to seminary. And that is what I did. That's what most people do, you see. So, so I did that. I met my husband. He's a pastor. And that has meant that we've been taken to different places we would not have expected to go. We're very blessed, though. We live in Arkansas, Northeast Arkansas, and we love it there. I have been given the opportunity to be on with Life Ministry again in a couple different ways, but one of them being the Friends for Life podcast. And so it's been a new experience for me to host a podcast. Deaconess Tiffany Manor, director of Life Ministry, approached me and asked me if I'd be interested in hosting a podcast. And I said, I have no understanding of how you host a podcast. I listen to podcasts, but I don't even know what that looks like. So it's been a year and a half of learning technology and the podcasting etiquettes and all of that stuff, which you ladies have been really helpful with.
Sarah's just good at editing.
And Sarah's good at,
No, that's the only part.
So people don't know that Sarah's also intimately involved in Friends for Life for posting and helping to edit.
Very cool.
So Friends for Life is the podcast of the LCMS out of the Division of Life Ministry. And essentially what we do is we talk about life topics through the lens of the gospel. And we have a lot of serious topics, but we also try to make it more on a lighthearted note too. Kind of like, hopefully like, it would be me and someone else sitting down for coffee. At least that's how I feel when I have guests on. In fact, I usually have coffee or tea with me. I have had so many wonderful guests on so far. So we've recorded 20. And I have learned so much from the guests that we've had on, just their wisdom and experience and their pastoral care for people, essentially learning how to love our neighbors, the most vulnerable. And that includes unborn babies. That includes the elderly. That includes anyone in between on the spectrum of aging or abilities. And so it's been a joy to do that. And I just thank you for the opportunity today to come and talk about another passion of mine, which would be the March for Life itself. And I'm very excited to be a part of that.
Can I
too.
just jump in with a personal question real quick? Like
Oh,
we're just
boy.
out the gate. No. You're from you live in Arkansas, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get affected by the storms last week? And is everything okay by you?
Oh, wow. Thank you for asking.
No, you're welcome. That's my life right now. So
Oh, yeah,
you said
yeah.
Arkansas, and I was like, oh, but ding! I just told a
Last
donor
week
that
being in mid-December.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And if I'm under the impression too, and Sarah, you checked in on me. That was so kind of you. Texted me to check on my family. We did not have any touchdown within like a 30-mile radius, although we were told we were going to have sirens going off all night. And we didn't. They dodged us and they kind of traveled more, east.
Are your
than we
congregants
were.
okay?
Everyone is. Although, in
that's
fact, our next door neighbor, her father-in-law was in the Monette nursing home that got struck by the tornado. And for hours, they didn't know if he was accounted for or not. And he is well.
Good.
But it did hit home in that way too.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, only to wake up and to hear of the devastation of Kentucky and even in Illinois and the tornadoes that spun off of what we had starting in Arkansas. Yeah, it was
So nuts.
it was a doozy. And that's what happens when it was almost 80 degrees. We turned on our AC
Yeah.
in December.
Yep.
Yep. Wild.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure.
I thought you were going to ask me a much more personal question.
No, I know. That's why I said it like that. I just like to scare people periodically. I enjoy doing that.
I'm going to ask your deepest secret right now.
Your social security number.
Well, Stephanie, I really appreciate the Friends for Life podcast, and I really appreciate the breadth of topics that you've covered so far in just the short amount of time you've been doing this. It's not just focusing on one thing or only talking about abortion or only talking about euthanasia. You were covering such a wide variety of things that are all encompassed in life ministry, and I think that's really important for people to kind of understand that life ministry covers almost every facet of our lives because it's all about the sanctity of life. And that is something that we live out every day in our vocations.
Yeah.
So kudos to you. We'll put a link in the show notes if people want to check out that podcast.
Thank you.
Now for the main event today, you mentioned the March for Life. This episode is scheduled to drop on the actual Friday of the March for Life. So as people are maybe listening to this podcast as it drops, there's people marching in Washington, D.C. right now. And so this March for Life is something that happens every year. It's an amazing event. I've been able to go once. You've been able to go once, so that I guess.
Right. Yeah. Although when this comes out, I'll be marching too.
Hey,
So
that's really cool.
yes, I will be there.
The magic of podcasting.
That's
Two
right.
places at once.
Exactly.
So tell us about what the March for Life actually is.
Yeah, I would love to. So when you say March for Life, you might be referring to the March for Life in DC, the big national one. Although there are many marches for life across the country. And in fact, LCMS Life Ministry has 8 different marches they will be a part of across the country.
Oh, wow.
And this big one in DC is typically the one that we think of when we talk about the march. But there are different marches according to region and location. And the DC March for Life. So I have been marching in DC, and then I've also marched in St. Louis, March at the Arch, and then also at Jeff City as well. So capital of Missouri, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're good.
It always seems weird. Jefferson City, it seems like it's just kind of out there. No one ever talks about it. Anyway, so the March for Life in DC is an experience unlike any I had before. I would love to give specific detail, but as a recap of the overall experience, I would say for me, it's a very joyful, peaceful, encouraging time. I would think, at least this was my perception before I even marched, that it was a lot of people making a big scene and not really being kind toward one another. And it's quite the opposite. My experience was it was a very peaceful time where groups of all sorts, not just Lutherans, not just Catholics, not just Christians, but even secular organizations, even those that are atheists, all come together under this belief that we are to protect and to guard life. And specifically, the LCMS has a group that marches together, and the LCMS loves to coordinate people even on a regional level. So if you know of an area near you that's having a march that might not be on our website yet, we would love to know. And I can share that at the very end too, how you would get in touch with us. But we love to coordinate a group specifically of LCMS people. We're all usually wearing these bright green fluorescent hats, holding signs that say who we are and where we're from, and that we believe in Christ from whom comes all good things, including life. And so I believe the year that I was there, the LCMS got to be the forerunners of the march.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a very exciting time. We had President Harrison there as well. And essentially, we walked the entire length of the route, praising through our liturgy, chanting hymns and praying psalms and singing, praying the Lord's Prayer. I mean, it was a very cool thing when you have Lutherans who are all using a common liturgy to be able to just from memory pray these words that the Lord has given us. A very encouraging time to know that we are not alone in our advocacy for life. And I have only had a positive experience doing marches with the LCMS.
I would like to know sort of what does the day of the march look like? I mean, drop us down there. Where do you go when you show up? What's happening? How do you know it's time to start? And how long is the route? I mean, give me all the juicy details of what it's like to actually be there and spend the day at the March for Life.
Rachel, thank you for that question. I should have started with what the beginning of that day looks like, because we all met at Emmanuel in Alexandria, Virginia, so just outside the city. And we started with a worship service. And then after the worship service, we had breakfast. And then after breakfast...
Wait, what time did you start?
Worship service.
Yes. What time?
She wants to know how early she has to get up in the morning if she shows up for the March for Life.
Is it a 5 a.m. start and then breakfast?
Oh, that's a good question. Wow, if it was a 5 a.m. start, I'm not sure where I would be at the moment.
I'm sure where I would be.
I don't remember what time. I mean, it was a normal time in the morning for us to have
so it wasn't
the divine
crazy
service.
early.
No,
It was not crazy early.
because the march happens in the around lunchtime.
It happens around lunchtime.
Yeah, so it's not like a super early morning. Although there's so many people there. Sorry. You can tell the story.
Yes. Well, so let me start from the beginning, which I should have started from before. A very important part of the day is that at a normal hour in the morning, maybe like 8:30 or 9.
That's very appropriate.
Right.
Okay.
That's very appropriate.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
It's reasonable.
We, the group of the LCMS marchers, met at Emmanuel in Alexandria, Virginia, just outside the city. And we had a divine service. What a great way to start out the day, with your focus being on Christ, who gives all good gifts. And the reason we march is because Christ incarnate has come and has hallowed the human experience. And so that's why we march for the unborn as well. And then following the divine service, perhaps what would be an appropriate breakfast time, 10:30. We had breakfast
leaning towards brunch, but okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you're right. And then everyone, in their own way, got transportation to the site of where we all gathered.
Okay. What were the various kinds of transportation that was taken?
Well, good question.
What did you do to get to the march?
Yeah. I took an Uber, which was,
did you really?
At the time, this was in 2016, was kind of a newer time for Uber to be, up and coming. And so the whole app experience for me, the paying through an app. I mean, only 5 years ago, these were new concepts.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So I did take an Uber, but there were, I think there were busing situations.
And the train too. When I went in 2019, there was just a whole bunch of people with the bright neon green caps on the train.
That's cool.
And it was nuts.
Yes.
Those trains were so full.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I can imagine. It is real cool. Those caps are great. Not only for like a Disney World experience, but also for a March for Life DC experience.
You can totally spot where you're supposed to be.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
So, you're thinking January on the East Coast.
Cold.
freezing cold.
Yeah.
And that the year that I was there was also the year of the big snowstorm blizzard
Right.
in DC as
Ooh.
well.
Didn't people got stuck there, didn't they?
I got stuck there.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
We the people got stuck there in Washington,
Yes.
D.C.
Uh-huh.
I was pregnant with our firstborn.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
It was not a great experience to not be able to, like if I was hungry, I had to walk to restaurants
Yeah.
and restaurants
Mm.
were closed. And
Mm.
I mean, no snowplows were going through. It was nuts.
Oh, my goodness.
That's a story for a different time too. It was a wild experience, but all part of it. Like all looking back, I mean, just the Lord used it all for His good purpose.
My flights actually got canceled too. When I went, it was snow.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll see. We're talking to our
Rite
future
of
selves here
passage.
in a month. I don't know
That's
what the
right.
weather is going to be like.
Well, what this all shows
Probably
me
80.
is that people
Yeah.
care enough about this that they're willing to march in a DC winter, even
Yes.
knowing that occasionally snow just dumps and leaves you stranded. So that
Yes.
I think
Uh-huh.
makes the march that much more powerful.
You're
if
right.
it were in like September or during April with the cherry blossoms, everybody would like go, and it wouldn't be
Yeah.
You're
require
right.
nearly so much passion and
Kind of
dedication.
statement.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if you could make a movie of the march, like a 30-minute long movie, you could really dramatize it being by against all the odds.
Mm.
They put on their animal coats, furs,
Mhm.
and marched.
Pelts.
Yes. Yes, animal pelts. Yeah. So my experience was it was very chilly. But you're right, Rachel. Like that's even in adversity, that's kind of when God's people are formed sometimes
Mhm.
most. And so it is very cool that looking, to your left or your right, you're like, here's a neighbor that came
Huh.
out today
Yeah.
with me to march because they found it worth it.
So we left off on your Uber ride.
Okay.
What happened after the Uber ride?
Oh, the Uber ride from brunch to the
Uh-huh.
marching site.
Yes.
Yes, I got there safely, of course, because I'm here today. And there's still Uber is still a thing.
Uh-huh.
So.
Yeah. Yeah.
They didn't go out of business.
Right. And I remember that the March for Life is a specific organization in itself. And so they had a whole platform of people speaking. I don't remember who their keynote was at the time, actually out in the cold. I know they've had presidents come before.
Mhm.
And we were able to kind of organize ourselves. We had Pastor Schurman actually was there that year for photography.
Oh.
I believe that our resident photographer from LCMS wasn't able to come out because of the blizzard, if I'm remembering correctly.
Oh.
Unless I made that story up, then that's a good story. That works in with, what we're talking about already. Anyway, so then you march for what would be maybe 30, 45 minutes. And you
How long
get to
is the actual march? Like not time wise, sorry. Like distance wise, how is there a clear start and finish?
Yeah, can I
people
phone
progress?
a friend?
Ooh.
And how
Yeah.
many steps are going on my pedometer?
A lot.
I was not tired by the end of it.
No, it's not super duper long.
How many
It-
vitality points do you think I could get?
you would
doing that?
probably get 15.
Yes.
It would be a full.
It'd
the
be a
full-
high intensity
yeah.
workout.
It would be long enough, and there is like you walk up the hill that the Capitol sits on. So you do actually have a hill to walk up. It's not like crazy hill, but it's not flat either.
It is very cool that yes, as you end the route and you come in view of the Capitol building and kind of thinking like this is where the legislation comes out of, and something we pray for too.
Mhm.
Our elected officials, our legislators, all part of our prayers that day that God would give them wisdom and guidance and protecting our babies and our mamas and their daddies too, to be wise into salvation and to choose life for their children.
Okay,
That
I
sounds
have from the official March for Life website. You said phone a friend, so I just started Googling.
Yeah. Oh, you're my friend. Okay. Thank you.
So the march proceeds east from the Washington Monument between 12th and 14th Streets on Constitution Avenue and ends in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. So we're looking half mile to a mile all told.
It is so cool. And maybe you experienced this too, Stephanie. It is so cool to like kind of be winding your way through the streets of DC, getting to getting to the mall, and then you walk up to the mall, and all of a sudden there's just this sea of people. And like that was my first impression when I got there. I kind of knew what to expect. Like I knew there were going to be a lot of people, and this is pre-COVID, so like big groups of people were still a thing. But just this massive amount of people that were all there. And it's almost overwhelming that like all of these people, like we're all here for the same reason, and it's just thousands of people.
Yes.
It's mind blowing.
Yes.
I've always had the impression that you're walking for hours.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That would be a detriment to me considering, I think.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
It was.
I'm getting 5 points then, guys. I am not getting 15. That's like 2,500 steps for me.
Well, it probably depends also on how you're walking, because a lot of times, like if you're in a group, you're walking up to the front of the group. Well, at least that was me with the media, so maybe that was different because we were trying to interview people, but we'd be walking back and forth
I
within
tend
the
to
group.
meander.
Yeah, and like seeing who's out and like going to talk to people and then running to catch up with the group, and it's a whole experience. But yeah, it isn't super long.
Okay.
Okay, I was wrong. Actually, another website says it's 2 miles.
Okay, 2 miles.
That doesn't sound right to me.
It says nearly 2 miles.
That's
But
a
you
long way to
know,
walk.
it's a doable walk.
Totally
There is
manageable.
Citation needed.
Yeah.
Citation needed. It's fine.
juicyecumenism.com, 7 facts about the March for Life that you should know. Haha. We'll put that in the show notes. Actually, it looks like an interesting article.
What was your first impression when you arrived in your Uber, safe and sound? What was your first impression?
Oh, I was overwhelmed. Like you had said, I mean, it's a sea of people. And truly, I think my first impression was, which I don't know why I didn't think about this, but I didn't. My first impression was, wow, Christians aren't the only ones who care about life. Truly, I was not expecting to see. And I mean, there were actual organizations that were something along the lines of like humanitarians for life or atheists for life. I mean, not kidding. These were actual names of organizations that shouldn't have surprised me because scripture says the law is written on man's hearts. And it was an encouragement to me that you come together and you see this sea of people who's representative, honestly, of a very small fraction of who actually believes these things, because not everyone can get to DC.
Right.
An encouragement to be able to walk alongside other people and knowing that you're not alone. It can feel very isolating, especially when you consider, you know, I'm in my place and time. So Northeast Arkansas, you know, there's honestly not a lot of Lutherans in Northeast Arkansas. So that also can kind of feel a little bit isolating if you think about, you know, what you stand for and your beliefs. But then these kinds of things are a reminder that we're not alone. And the church triumphant is there, you know, with us and in agreement of what our Lord has said about life. And then not only the church, but then also, wow, other people think this too, and they don't even know Jesus. It can be kind of a one-sided, you can feel like it's a one-sided argument, especially from what you see on media or can read in the news. And the other sad thing is you experience this overwhelming event of thousands upon thousands of people, and there's no media coverage of it. That's kind of stunning. It's kind of anticlimactic. There's almost kind of like you finish the march and you get home and you're like, whoa, there's no national commentary on this. But that's kind of part of it too. And I think that by all other measures, we're not winning. But as long as we proclaim Christ, the gospel, and Him crucified, the church is doing its job, and it must remain faithful to that message.
What does it look like then when you leave the mall? You go through all of the speakers, and then you start walking along the path. What are the things that you're seeing and hearing and experiencing on this? What did we determine? 2 mile walk from the mall.
2 miles.
It's a mile.
From the mall to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, the sights and sounds. One thing is that there are maybe what we would call counter protesters, although I don't. It doesn't feel like, at least what the LCMS is doing is a protest. I would consider it more of a peaceful advocacy and just a confession of what we believe.
It's a demonstration.
But alongside, there are people who are sharing the opposite message. But not only that, are saying it in a way that's truly disgraceful, very distasteful, and that's saddening. So you have this one experience of marching kind of like on this straight and narrow path, and then people along the sides, of course, knowing and anticipating that you're coming, are there to kind of push back with the opposite message, and truly without getting overly spiritual about this, it does feel like the forces of God and the works of the devil himself are at odds in a very real way that day. And that feels very powerful too. But you know what's really peaceful is seeing pastors amongst you. And I just find a pastor and a clerical, even like with a coat over, to be so comforting. And I'm marching, right next to several pastors and, of course, lay people as well. But to be led by pastors who are reciting the liturgy, who are saying psalms, who are leading us in prayer, there is some real pastoral care going on at the very same time as well. And from a marcher's standpoint, I don't remember hearing a lot of noise other than the stuff we were saying.
Wow.
Even people, behind us who were marching with us. I was truly in that moment. And then in our mob of green people, and I truly would be surprised if I heard of anyone who's marched with the LCMS who's had a different experience than that. I would be surprised if they did. So I do think that my experience, albeit limited, is kind of a representation of what other marchers experience as well.
Yeah.
So you said there's not a lot of noise aside from, the psalms so it's surprisingly quiet. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
like for all the people that are there?
Experiencing it is one. And I was in the middle of the mass of the LCMS. And I don't remember, although I'm curious if we had a videotape of my experience, if it would have been incredibly noisy.
Right.
But that's not what my takeaway was.
Okay.
My takeaway was it was this just a cappella group of people singing.
Yeah.
And then praying the Lord's Prayer and reciting Psalm 23. I mean, for me, it wasn't an experience where I had to come home and not listen to anything for hours.
So someone maybe positioned differently, like on the outer edge or the inner edge, maybe a different feel for them.
I would be so curious. I would be so curious what other people experience, but not only outside of the LCMS, but then outside of our marching group as well. No, Sarah, what was your experience like?
There wasn't a lot of yelling happening. I know that there was a group, and I don't remember who they were, but it was this drumline group that was doing this drumline thing the whole way. That was really cool and loud, but really cool. And there are other groups who, we in the LCMS have our signature hymn singing that we do, and that gets kind of loud. And it's also kind of interesting because our group is so big. If you're at the front or the back of the group, you're kind of going in two different keys and in two different tempos.
It's that Doppler effect.
Yeah, that's a really wild experience to hear different hymn singing happening of the same hymn. But there are other groups some of the Catholic groups pray rosaries while they're walking. So there's other things that are happening. But you're right, it is all very uplifting. It's all very joyful. There's not a lot of downer people, except for the people that are protesting what we're doing. And some of them, that is very jarring.
I do have a question though, because I know that a lot of moms in my circles or coworkers or whomever want to send their teen girls or the youth group or whomever to, is it safe basically?
My kids got the chance to attend with their youth group from Missouri. Actually, they were coming out. We were living in Virginia and they were able to connect. So I had two teenagers that I entrusted to their youth group friends for the March event. And they came back so energized. Yes. It was a wonderful experience. I'm wishing that I'd been able to go with them. I've only been once when we were living in Washington, D.C., when I was 14 years old. We went to the March for Life on the 20th anniversary.
Oh, cool.
And I'm going to have to say, outside, I went with some Catholic friends that time. And so I was not in the LCMS bubble for that experience. And it was noisy. It was very noisy. And yes, there were so many different people, all of them gentle but passionate. I don't think I've ever seen so many habited monks and nuns in my life, which is a cool cultural experience right there.
Yep.
I do remember, though, you said no yelling. One of my clearest memories from this experience years ago was just people yelling out, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, Hillary and Bill have got to go."
Brother.
Well, it was a different age. But I think the March for Life has really come of age in that people have said, what do we really want to be saying with this event? What is the message that if we have to keep marching from now until kingdom come, we want people inside and outside to take away from it? And you're right. It has actually, from everything I can see, gotten even more positive over the last 2 decades. And even though the reason that we're marching is no less tragic, no less angering than it has been, it's still an outrage. But the marchers have said, we want to sing hymns. We don't want to shout slogans. And I think that's really cool. At least the Lutheran marchers have done that. I'm sure there are some people still shouting somewhere in that long, long column of people.
I hope they're still calling out Bill and Hillary Clinton. Like, that would just be so funny to me.
Something else that was really cool from my experience is when we got to the museum, which is along the march route, and the First Amendment is actually written on the outside of that building. And we all stopped as a group in front of that building and read through the First Amendment from the Bill of Rights.
Oh, wow.
As a group of Lutherans that were all together, which is a very, I don't know, it's kind of struck me at the time because we're here marching for something that we believe in our religious views and our vocational views, but then we do believe also two kingdoms theology and everything in Lutheranism, to have this like juxtaposition of all of these beliefs in our Lutheran belief system kind of all coming together. I don't know. It struck me as something that was really interesting.
And I am curious. I've never been to a March for Life before.
You should go.
Pretty much everything that I've ever ingested about the March for Life is influenced by the things I do see and read, and including our own LCMS publications, to be fair. Is there a multifaceted approach to March for Life? In other words, abortion obviously is a huge topic when it comes to life matters. Are there other focuses, whether it's a speaker or a cluster of people or a sign? I guess what I'm asking is abortion really the primary thing that is being demonstrated?
Is it really a march against abortion, or is it a march for life?
That's pretty much what I'm asking.
Oh,
thank you for translating that for me.
It's a heavy question.
It's a good question.
I don't know that I have the right answer, other than the answer I would give is that the first thing is that Christians march because we believe that life is a gift and life is valued and life is bestowed on us from our Creator. And then what flows from that is the fact that we stand against then abortion.
Sure.
But I think I would be lying if I said it wasn't a march also against abortion, because we're marching for the DC one, at least, in the very seat of our country,
of course,
where these decisions are made and they stem from that affect our whole nation. And so I would say also that it's a march for the unborn who are vulnerable to being killed from abortion.
Sure. And the reason I ask is I just wonder how many more groups could get involved if there was a more diverse set of topics or groups, and not even like the organizations to get involved, but a significant criticism of Christians. I know I've heard it said about the LCMS, like, we care about babies until they're born. You know what I mean? Like, that is an ongoing like litany that we hear is Christians only care about babies until they're born. And so part of me just wonders if we really showed the other facets of what we believe as lovers of life, like how much of that noise could we cut through?
Well, and the March for Life, it's stated, its mission statement definitely goes beyond just abortion. I'm looking at their website right now, and it says, "We celebrate life from the moment of conception to the moment of natural death and every moment in between." So there's room for all of that in this. Yes, there is a heavy abortion focus because that is a huge issue in our country and has been and will be until we get it all sorted out. if Jesus doesn't come back first.
I'd be okay with that, though. I'm sorry.
Honestly, I would be fine with that too. But there is room. And I remember, in the early 90s, there was a whole lot of press over assisted suicide. Remember Dr. Kevorkian?
Oh, yep.
And so that was another point of emphasis for the march the year I was there. It was abortion and assisted suicide were huge focal points. But I think that if you have the vision to support life from conception to natural death, there are all sorts of other conversations that spin out from that.
Yeah.
So for sure.
I will say, Bree, too, from my experience, being there is a heavy message on the fact that life in the womb is worth protecting.
Absolutely.
And that's the major focal point.
Sure.
But of course, as we walk too, there was also prayers for the families.
Okay.
Prayers for the moms and the dads.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that's something that the church is, maybe I should just say specifically the LCMS, is starting to recognize too. And always have, just tweaking our messaging to be as truthful as we can.
Yes.
And so we know that this issue, of course, is not only about babies in the womb,
Right.
but also, I guess, in response to maybe some critics out there who just say the church just cares about unborn babies and then not afterwards. I would say, from my experience and my presence there, it was very much a very, holistic approach to the family, the way that God has intended, and, not forsaking the mom and the dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think too that it's become pretty common, especially in pregnancy centers, to really focus on mom and baby. But I think the church is starting to realize too, we need to be praying for these fathers.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be thinking of how to care for and equip them to step in and care for life as well.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
You're going to get to go this year again, Steph, right?
Yes.
What
yes,
are
I'm here
you
as we
most
speak.
looking? Oh, yeah. Right now, here we are at the march.
Say hi to everyone.
Will do.
Everyone.
As of December 17th, if you can think back that far, what were you most looking forward to in this experience?
Oh, I
and
remember.
Are you doing it right now?
I love that question. December 17th. Let me think of my December 17th self. Got it. What am I most looking forward to? I'm most looking forward to the fellowship of being with other believers, specifically my own church body. It's awesome when Lutherans get together, and I don't feel that way only about the march, but when we have conferences, conventions, gatherings, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But, a reminder that it's the foretaste of the feast to come. Mm-hmm. And we have the fellowship in the beginning of being in the sanctuary for the divine service, being fed with the Lord's body and blood, being fed with the words that give eternal life. And then kind of being sent forth from there, being sent forth from the sanctuary of the church out into the world to proclaim the good news. That is what I'm looking forward to be amongst other believers. Mm-hmm. It's a really powerful thing. And like you said, Rachel, people who go there come back energized. And it's a great thing for youth to be involved in. I would suggest that for any youth group near any parts of DC. But we have youth groups that go from all across the country to Washington, D.C.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got to interview some they're not kids, teenagers,
youth
from
the youths
from my high school in Michigan who actually were at the march. So I was able to talk to some young people from my high school, and that was really cool to get their experiences and to talk to them about what this meant. I didn't have that opportunity when I was in high school there. They may have gone and I just didn't go. I don't remember. And it makes it very real to be around all of these people. Steph, when you're talking about the very real experience of like forces of good and evil against each other, when you see the protesters and see the things that they're legitimately angry, that experience makes it very real of what we believe and kind of solidifies these things in you as as something that like, yes, this is what I stand for. And yes, I am standing on this. There's sometimes when we have these beliefs and we hold to these truths, but we don't really embrace them.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, oh yeah, of course I believe that because I'm Lutheran and I believe the confessions. And yes, of course, yes, I'm a part of this church. But then you experience something like this and you see what the world stands for versus what we stand for. And that makes it very real and definitely solidifies beliefs that we have.
Yeah, I would say too, just to sum up the experience, particularly for younger people, it's a very formational experience. And not that one should go there to be changed. I think that's a secondary thing, though, is that just kind of like anything that has some hardship with it and some sacrifice, and also realize that you're in a battle that's worthy of praying for and proclaiming, that it forms you. And that's all good stuff. And, you know, when people are gathered together around God's word and the gospel, and when they're gathered together in prayer, that is worthy of the angels in heaven rejoicing. And so I can't wait to be there. I love being here in DC. Just as a plug, I want people to know how to get in touch with LCMS Life so that if they know of regional marches. Like I said, LCMS Life Ministry is currently involved or will be involved in 2022 in 8 marches across the country.
Wow.
But there are others that we may not be aware of, or may not be aware of LCMS groups coming together. And so we would like to be. And those people can email us at lifeministry@lcms.org, not only so that we can help promote the event, but also that we could send materials like our fluorescent hats to them, signs. We would love to be able to then, of course, promote it on our website, and people can go to lcmslife.org to get info on marches and resources for the marches that they plan to be a part of.
Fantastic. So LCMS, wait, what did you say? LCMS?
So the website is lcmslife.org.
Okay.
The email address is lifeministry@lcms.org.
You should
probably put those in the show notes.
I should
too,
succinctly wrap all of that up, and then I completely forgot what you had just said. It was definitely Friday afternoon.
When you have a ton of acronyms just mashing up together, it's hard to keep track of, too.
Yes, ma'am.
So we will put all of that information in the show notes, how people can find LCMS Life Ministry, how they can email you, and how they can find the Friends for Life podcast well.
Yes.
All of these great resources from LCMS Life Ministry.
I forgot I did that.
Oh, right.
I host a podcast. I forgot.
It's just my evening gig. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Steph, for joining us in studio today. This has been really fun.
Thank you. You guys are a blast. I wish I could do this more often. Yeah, it's so much fun. I'd love to just be here more often.
You are welcome anytime, friend.
Oh, thank you.
That's
Thanks, guys,
for
for having me.
We like having friends on the podcast.
We like friends.
We like friends.
We like friends for life.
For life.
That's right. And also just friends.
Also, yeah.
And friends for life. And friends.
Ladies, if you've been to a March for Life or you want to share stories, you can always do that in our Facebook group. We would love to hear your own stories and experiences and all these things. You can join us there, the Lutheran Ladies Lounge on Facebook. You can also follow us on Instagram at Lutheran Ladies Lounge. You can share your photos. If you went to the DC March this year, you can totally share those photos with us. Tag us at Lutheran Ladies Lounge and we'll share them into our story as well. You can find all of our podcasts at kfuo.org/Lutheran Ladies Lounge or on the KFUO radio app, or on your favorite podcasting app. You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
I'm Bree.
And I'm Rachel.
KFUO Radio and the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast are underwritten in part by Ad Crucem. Visit them online at adcrucem.com. Views and opinions expressed on the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast may not represent the official position of the management or ownership of KFUO Radio, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. The Lutheran Ladies Lounge is produced by KFUO Radio and available at kfuo.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Join our community on Facebook in the Lutheran Ladies Lounge.